March 7th, 1961, 9:07 p.m. The bottle sat between them like a confession waiting to be spoken. Johnny Walker Black Label, Bumpy's preferred Scotch for the past 15 years. The amber liquid caught the lamplight, glowing warm and inviting, the same way it had glowed every night when Ernestine Holloway carried it into his study on a silver tray. Tonight, there were 2 glasses instead of 1. "Sit down, Ernie." Ernestine hesitated at the door, the tray still in her hands, her eyes moving from the bottle to the glasses to the man in the leather chair who had never once asked her to sit in his presence. "Mr. Johnson, I should get back to the kitchen." "Sit down." Something in his voice made her obey. She set the tray on the side table and lowered herself into the chair across from his. The chair reserved for guests he wanted to intimidate. The chair she had dusted 1,000 times, but never occupied. Bumpy reached for the bottle, poured 2 generous measures, pushed 1 glass toward her. "Drink with me." "Sir, I don't—" $5,000. The words landed like stones in still water. Ernestine's face went pale. "That's what they paid you," Bumpy continued, his voice quiet, conversational, as if discussing the weather. "Half up front, half when I'm dead. The Italians. Tony Cups Carboni, if I had to guess. He has a way of finding people's weaknesses." "Mr. Johnson, I watched you, Ernie, 4 nights ago. Juno saw you add the powder to this bottle." He lifted his glass, studied the amber liquid, the poison she had stirred into it with her own hands. "Arsenic. Slow-acting. Clever, really. Another 2 weeks and Dr. Hayes might not have caught it in time." Ernestine's hands were shaking. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Please." "How long?" "What?" "How long have you been poisoning me?" A long pause, then barely a whisper. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Bumpy nodded slowly, as if confirming something he already knew. 3 weeks of carrying this tray into my study. 3 weeks of watching me pour a glass and take my first sip and close my eyes, because this is the 1 hour of the day when I let myself rest. 3 weeks of smiling when I said thank you. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "No, you're not." His voice hardened. "You're sorry you got caught. Sorry you're sitting in this chair instead of on a bus to Georgia with $5,000 in your purse. But you're not sorry for what you did." He pushed her glass closer. "Now you're going to drink it." Every night at 9 o'clock, the world stopped for Bumpy Johnson. It had been that way for 20 years. The meetings were done, the decisions made, the weight of Harlem set aside, if only for an hour. He would retire to his study, the room at the back of the brownstone on 127th Street, the room where no one entered without invitation, and pour himself 2 fingers of Johnny Walker Black. No ice, no water, just the Scotch, amber and warm, in a crystal glass that had belonged to his father. He would sit in his leather chair, the one by the window that looked out over the street, and he would drink slowly, savoring, thinking, sometimes reading, sometimes just sitting with the silence, letting the liquor unknot the tension in his shoulders and the calculations in his mind. It was the only time Ellsworth Raymond Johnson allowed himself to be anything other than Bumpy. The only hour when the crown came off and the man beneath could breathe. Ernestine Holloway knew this. She had prepared his evening drink for 5 years, had set the bottle and the glass on the silver tray, carried it to his study, placed it on the table beside his chair. She knew exactly when he drank, how much he poured, the satisfied sigh he made after the first sip. She knew his ritual better than anyone in the world. That's why the Italians chose her. The man who found her wasn't Italian. That was the first surprise. He was colored, well-dressed, waiting outside the church on a Sunday morning in February, like he belonged there. He fell into step beside her as she walked home, matching her pace, his voice low and friendly. "Miss Holloway, I'm a friend of your cousin, Marcus. He speaks highly of you." "I don't know what Marcus told you, but I'm not interested." $5,000. She stopped walking. $5,000, he repeated. "Half now, half when the job is done. All you have to do is add something to Mr. Johnson's evening drink, a little powder, every night for a month. By the end, he'll be gone, and everyone will think his heart gave out." Ernestine looked at the man, his pressed suit, his easy smile, the complete absence of conscience in his eyes. "You're asking me to kill a man." "I'm asking you to retire rich." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Think about it, Miss Holloway. You've been cooking and cleaning for criminals for 5 years. Is this the life you wanted? Is this where you thought you'd end up when you left Georgia?" She thought about the little house she'd dreamed of since childhood, the sister in Atlanta she hadn't seen in a decade, the life she could have if she had money, real money, the kind that opened doors instead of closing them. "Who's paying?" "People who want Mr. Johnson out of the way. That's all you need to know." "And if I say no?" "Then we find someone else. But the offer won't come again," he smiled. "And $5,000 is a lot of money for a woman in your position." She should have said no, should have walked away, told Bumpy, done the right thing. But $5,000. A house with a garden. A life that didn't smell like other people's kitchens. "Half now?" "In your hands by tonight." "Yes." The word came out before she could stop it. And once it was spoken, there was no taking it back. The powder was white, fine, almost invisible once it dissolved. Ernestine's hands trembled as she unscrewed the cap of the Johnnie Walker. The bottle was half full. Bumpy went through one every 2 weeks, steady as clockwork. She had watched him drink for 5 years, knew his habits better than her own. She tapped the powder into the amber liquid, watched it swirl, dissolve, disappear. Nothing. No color change, no smell. No evidence that anything had changed at all. Just Scotch, same as always. She set the bottle on the silver tray, added the crystal glass, carried it to the study at exactly 9 o'clock, same as every night for 5 years. Bumpy was already in his chair, eyes closed, the weight of the day still visible in the set of his shoulders. She had seen him like this 1,000 times, tired, human, vulnerable in the way that powerful men rarely allow themselves to be. For a moment, something twisted in her chest, something that might have been guilt. She pushed it down. "Your Scotch, Mr. Johnson." "Thank you, Ernie." She set the tray on the table, turned to leave. "Ernie." Her heart stopped. She turned back, certain he knew, certain this was the end, certain she would never see Georgia or her sister or anything beyond the walls of this room. "Yes, sir?" "That roast tonight was excellent. Best you've made in months." The relief nearly buckled her knees. "Thank you, sir." She walked out of the study, closed the door behind her, and stood in the hallway with her hand pressed against her mouth, trying to control her breathing. Behind her, she heard the clink of glass, the pour of liquid, the satisfied sigh of a man taking his first sip of poison. 1 down, 29 to go. The symptoms started in the 2nd week. Fatigue that Bumpy attributed to age, a heaviness in his limbs that he blamed on long days and short nights. He was 60 years old, after all. The body had a right to slow down. Then came the stomach cramps, sharp, sudden, gone as quickly as they came. He mentioned them to Mame, who told him to see Dr. Hayes. He said he would. He didn't. The metallic taste appeared next. Faint at first, then persistent. He noticed it most in the evenings, after his scotch. Thought maybe the bottle had gone bad. Opened a new one. The symptoms continued. By the third week, his hands had developed a tremor. Not dramatic, just enough to notice. Just enough to make pouring his own drink an act of concentration rather than habit. He was dying. Slowly. Methodically. One glass at a time. And he had no idea. Dr. Reginald Hayes had been Bumpy's physician for 11 years. He had seen the man survive knife wounds, gunshots, and the slow, grinding stress of running an empire. He knew Bumpy's body almost as well as he knew his own. And he knew, the moment he examined him, that something was very wrong. When did this start? 3 weeks, maybe 4. Hayes drew blood with practiced efficiency. Bumpy watched, impatient, certain this was a waste of time. "I'm fine, Reginald, just tired." "You're not fine." Hayes's face was grave. "You're showing classic signs of heavy metal poisoning. The fatigue, the tremors, the metallic taste, these aren't symptoms of age. They're symptoms of arsenic." Bumpy went very still. "Someone has been poisoning you," Hayes continued. "Slowly, consistently, small doses that accumulate over time. If I'm right, you have maybe 2 weeks before the damage becomes irreversible." The room was silent. Outside, Harlem hummed with its usual evening noise. Cars, voices, the distant pulse of music. Inside, there was only the weight of understanding settling over Bumpy's shoulders. "Who has access to your food and drink?" The answer came immediately. The same answer it had always been. The woman who had served him for 5 years. The woman who prepared his meals, his coffee, his evening scotch. The woman who smiled when he said thank you. Bumpy didn't confront her. Didn't let anything change. He stopped drinking the scotch she brought. Poured it into a plant when she wasn't looking, refilled his glass with clean liquor from a bottle Juno had secured. He ate meals Mame prepared in secret, pushing Ernestine's food around his plate without taking a bite. And he had Juno watch. Not obviously, just present, helping in the kitchen, running errands, finding excuses to be near when Ernestine prepared the evening tray. Juno was good at being invisible. It was one of the reasons Bumpy trusted him. On the 4th night, Juno saw it. Ernestine, alone in the kitchen, the bottle of Johnny Walker open on the counter, a small envelope in her hand. White powder tapped into the scotch, the bottle recapped, the envelope tucked back into her apron pocket. She didn't see him, didn't know she had been caught. Juno reported to Bumpy within the hour. "Tomorrow," Bumpy said, his voice flat and cold. "We end it tomorrow." "I can't drink this." Ernestine's voice was barely audible, her eyes fixed on the glass of scotch that sat in front of her like a death sentence. "You served it to me for 3 weeks." Bumpy's voice was calm, patient, utterly devoid of mercy. "Every night. Watched me drink it. Smiled when I said it was good." "That was different." "Different how?" He leaned forward. "Because you weren't the one dying? Because you got to walk away after? Go back to your room, count your money, plan your new life?" "Please, Mr. Johnson, I'll tell you everything. The Italians, Tony Cups, all of it. I'll give you names. I already have the names." He picked up the glass, held it out to her. "What I don't have is justice." "This isn't justice. This is murder." "No." Bumpy's eyes were hard. "This is consequence. You chose this, Ernie. You chose it when you took their money. You chose it when you put poison in my drink. You chose it every night for 3 weeks when you could have stopped and didn't." He pressed the glass into her trembling hands. "Drink." The first glass took 3 minutes. Ernestine sipped, gagged, sobbed. The scotch burned going down, and beneath the burn, something else, something metallic and wrong, the taste of her own betrayal flooding her system. Bumpy watched without expression. "More." He refilled her glass, pushed it back toward her. The second glass went faster. She had stopped hoping for mercy, stopped believing that anything she said would change what was happening. "Please." "More." By the third glass, her hands wouldn't cooperate. The arsenic she had carefully measured into small, survivable doses was now accumulating in her system. All at once, all together, a lethal concentration building in her blood. "I didn't want to hurt you." Her words were slurring. "I just wanted to go home." "Home." Bumpy poured another glass. "Georgia, the little house you dreamed about, the sister you haven't seen in 10 years. "How did you—" "I know everything about the people in my house, Ernie. Everything except the one thing that mattered." He set the glass in front of her. "That you would kill me for money." She drank, coughed, felt the poison spreading through her body, felt her organs beginning to fail, felt the life she had traded for $5,000 slipping away with every swallow. "Why?" she whispered. "Why make me drink it? Why not just kill me quick?" "Because you didn't kill me quick." Bumpy's voice was soft, almost gentle. "You killed me slow. 3 weeks of watching me suffer, watching me weaken, watching me die by inches. You wanted me to fade away like a candle burning down. You wanted it to look natural." He refilled her glass one more time. "So now you know what that feels like." By the 7th glass, she had stopped speaking. Her eyes were glazed, her breathing shallow, her skin taking on the grayish pallor of a woman whose body was shutting down. The scotch sat in the glass, barely touched now. She didn't have the strength to lift it anymore. Bumpy picked up the glass, held it to her lips, tilted it slowly, letting the amber liquid pour into her mouth. She swallowed. Reflexive, automatic, the body's last desperate attempt to keep functioning. The 8th glass. The 9th. By the 10th, the bottle was empty. Ernestine Holloway slumped in the chair, her chin against her chest, her hands fallen open in her lap. She was still breathing, barely, but the ragged sound of it told Bumpy everything he needed to know. She had minutes left, maybe less. He set the empty bottle on the table between them. "You wanted $5,000, he said quietly. "You wanted a new life, a house in Georgia, a chance to start over." From his jacket pocket, he withdrew a roll of bills, the $2,500 Ernestine had already received, recovered from her room that morning. He placed it on the table in front of her. "This is what you earned. This is what 3 weeks of betrayal bought you." Her eyes, barely focusing, found the money she had sold her soul for, the money she would never spend. Bumpy picked it up, put it back in his pocket. "You die with nothing, Ernie. Not a penny, not a memory. Nothing but a belly full of poison and the knowledge that you failed." He stood, walked to the door, paused with his hand on the knob. "I trusted you. 5 years. You were in my home. You fed my family. And this is what you chose to do with that trust." He didn't turn around, didn't look at the dying woman in the chair. I hope Georgia was worth it. He opened the door, stepped through, closed it behind him. Ernestine Holloway died 43 minutes later. Alone in the study where she had served Scotch for 5 years, surrounded by the books she had dusted, the furniture she had polished, the reminders of a life she had been too greedy to appreciate. The arsenic and alcohol worked together, each amplifying the other. Her kidneys failed first, then her liver, then her heart. The end came not with drama, but with silence. A final, shuddering breath, and then nothing. Juno found her when he came to clean up. He had seen death before, many times, but something about this one stayed with him. The empty bottle, the money that wasn't there, the look on her face, frozen in the moment when she finally understood what her choices had cost. He wrapped the body in sheets, disposed of it in the way that bodies were disposed of in Harlem, quietly, efficiently, without questions. A letter was sent to Dolores Holloway in Atlanta. Natural causes, heart failure. Condolences from Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, who wanted her to know that Ernestine had been a valued member of their household. Dolores cried when she read it. Cried for the sister she had lost, the years they had spent apart, the reunion that would never happen. She never knew the truth. That was the only mercy Bumpy had left to give. 3 days later, a package arrived at Tony Cups Carbone's social club. No return address, no note on the outside. Just a plain brown box, the kind that could contain anything. Tony opened it himself. He was curious. Packages didn't usually arrive without explanation, and his curiosity had kept him alive for 47 years in a business that killed curious men. Inside, a human hand, right hand, preserved in salt. The fingers curled slightly, as if still reaching for something. And beneath the hand, a single piece of paper with 2 words. Find another. Tony stared at the hand for a long time. He recognized it, not specifically, but generally. A woman's hand, older. The hand that had added poison to Bumpy Johnson's Scotch. The hand that had failed. He understood the message. Everyone who saw it understood the message. Bumpy Johnson knew. Bumpy Johnson was alive. And Bumpy Johnson was not a man you tried to kill twice. Tony closed the box, called his superiors, explained in careful terms that the Harlem situation was more complicated than they had anticipated, and that perhaps they should reconsider their approach. The Genovese family did not try again. Some lessons only need to be taught once. The new cook started the following week. Her name was Mabel. She had come recommended from a family in the Bronx, and she understood without being told that there were certain things she should never do. She never asked about the previous cook, never wondered why the position had opened so suddenly, or why Mr. Johnson watched her so carefully for the first few months. She did her job, prepared the meals, set out the evening Scotch at exactly 9 o'clock. She never touched the bottle, never added anything to anything, never even thought about it. Because everyone in Harlem knew the story now. Knew what had happened to the woman who tried to poison Bumpy Johnson's drink. Knew about the bottle she was forced to finish. Knew about the hand that arrived in Tony Cups's mailbox. The story spread the way stories always spread. In whispers, in warnings, in the cautionary tales that parents told children about the price of betrayal. You hear about Bumpy's cook? The one who tried to poison him? Made her drink the whole bottle, every drop. Did she die? What do you think? Silence. The weight of understanding. That's cold. That's Bumpy. Bumpy Johnson lived for 7 more years. His heart gave out in July of 1968. Natural causes, the doctors said. The accumulated weight of a life lived hard and fast. He died in a restaurant, surrounded by friends, a cup of coffee growing cold in front of him. Not Scotch. He never touched Scotch again after that night in his study. Never could stomach the taste of it. Never could separate the amber liquid from the memory of Ernestine Holloway dying in his chair. Some things stay with you, even when you're the one who chose them. He was buried 3 days later in a ceremony that brought Harlem to a standstill. The streets were lined with mourners, the people he had protected, the enemies he had defeated, the legacy he had built over 4 decades of blood and brilliance. No one mentioned Ernestine Holloway. No one remembered her name. She had been erased from history, a footnote in a story that was larger than she could ever comprehend. But somewhere, in the back rooms where the old stories were still told, her lesson lived on. You don't poison the king. Not his food, not his drink, not the sanctuary where he goes to rest. And if you try, you better be ready to swallow every drop yourself. Look, this story isn't complicated. A woman took money to kill a man. $5,000, half up front, half when the job was done. She put poison in his scotch for 3 weeks, watched him drink it, smiled when he said thank you. She thought she was being clever, thought she would get away with it, thought that Bumpy Johnson was just another old man with too many enemies and not enough time left. She was wrong. Dr. Hayes found the poison in his blood. Juno caught her adding the powder. And on the last night of her life, Ernestine Holloway sat in Bumpy's study and drank the whole bottle of scotch she had prepared with her own hands. 10 glasses, 43 minutes. Dead in the chair where she had served him for 5 years. The Italians got her hand in a box. The message was simple. Find another. They didn't. That's the lesson. That's what Harlem understood. Some betrayals can be forgiven. Some can be survived. But when you try to kill the king in his own sanctuary, when you poison the 1 hour of peace he allows himself in a life full of chaos and violence, there's no coming back from that. Ernestine Holloway wanted $5,000 and a house in Georgia. She got an empty bottle and a lonely death. And Bumpy? He kept the money, every penny, because that's what you do with debts that can't be repaid any other way. If that hit different, if you understand why the punishment fit the crime, then you know what to do. Subscribe, turn on notifications,